What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the next video on HTML. Previously we discussed about the HTML, about divs, and we also applied some styling on the divs, and we, as you guys can see, that's our styling. In the previous video we discussed that how to write this styling and on each div. So in this video we're gonna further discuss the styling, because it's a bit hard, guys, if you go on every div, because if your website's got like a 500 div, it's nearly impossible to go and find every single div with your ID and you applied some styling. So it's very difficult. So that's one way of styling every div. If you guys want to see this again, so we go ahead and start our XAMPP control panel. It's already started. I'm gonna turn off and start again. So as you guys can see, it's running here, and we go our browser. So that's still on dashboard, and we go see our my first web on localhost. Okay, the reason is giving us because it's got a HTTPS at the end. You don't need to make sure you guys have just a localhost. So it should say localhost. It shouldn't say HTTP or HTTPS. Otherwise, the Firefox gonna generate this, gonna see that this is a threat or something, but it's not. You're just running the local host. All right, so that was our previous video, and we applied our styling on every div. Here, as you guys can see, all my different coloring, plus we turned the text color. In this video we're going to show you guys how to create this styling file. So we want to put the styling not on every div, but on different files. So how we're going to do that? All right, so in this video, as you guys can see, we go there at images and my folder, and you guys can see this index, which we've got an index here, all our writing here, and we applied our styling here. So now we go ahead and we're gonna see how we're gonna do our CSS file. So CSS, if you guys not familiar with CSS Cascading Style Sheet. So how we're gonna create the CSS? We are gonna start creating CSS by, just you guys know that our index is .html. We're gonna do that's a CSS. So instead of here, congratulations to you all, we gonna put a cascading style sheet or sheets, whatever, and the cascading comes in with the .css. So my style .css. All right, so I think that's the best way to apply styles to your HTML. To apply styles, or you guys can put awesome styles. I just put styles to your HTML pages. Alrighty, so we're gonna delete the rest. We're gonna leave the photos. Alright, we go and check in our browser. As you guys can see, cascading style sheet, and that's the example is like you guys can create my style or my or you guys can create style or whatever. That's whatever suits you, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. Alright, so we go there, how to create this CSS anyway, cascading style sheet. Alright, so we go on our files, and you guys see that our images, and that's my folder. We create a new folder and call it style. Style our assets. Some people they prefer to put it as assets. Some developers they prefer to put it as style. Whatever you guys feel happy. So you guys can do whatever you feel happy, and you guys can go in your notepad or your text editor, and you guys can create this CSS file. So if you go there and if you press this save as, and it's gonna try to save it because we created this style folder, we're gonna put it as my style. If you want to put a my style.css, but don't forget, you guys, don't forget that it has to be CSS at the end, and it has to, otherwise that's HTML is not gonna see this as a CSS. HTML must read this as a CSS. As you guys can see, this is the type cascading style sheet documents, because now the HTML reading this as a CSS styling sheets, nothing else, nothing less, nothing more. All right, so we go here, and instead of putting our styles on every div, we're gonna move all our styles to one file. So I think this is cool way. So as you guys can see, that's our photo, that's our first file, index file. Alright, so as you guys can see, that's the background is style background. We're gonna copy this, the first one. Alright, so we're gonna copy, okay, so now this div's got no style, it's unstyled div. If we check in our browser, you guys see that the color disappeared, so we don't have a style. So when CSS when HTML was created by Sir Lee, what happened that he wanted to communicate, send his scientific papers to another guys the other end. That's it. So he wanted to create some text, and he wanted to create some like headers and like heading and some paragraphs, and send it to his mates, the other scientists. But what happened that this is proved to be like explosive successful, extremely successful, and the other when it becomes popular, the other guys come in, the other computer programmers or scientists, whatever you call it, computer engineers, they created this CSS. So they just wanted to put a style to this HTML, but HTML by itself got no style. You have to put a CSS files, cascading style sheet, to give style to the to the HTML. So we go here, and so now we have our style, cascading style sheet, and we're gonna copy paste our things. It says background of this. So now we're gonna check, nothing happens. So now HTML is asking what cascading style sheet are asking, like, what's background, like what is the background, what do you want me to do? You ask me to do background this E1, but am I gonna do that? Because there is no such thing as there is no div, which div you want me to. And we now, so what we do is we have to give ID to every div. So if this our div, this div say it's got an ID, what's the ID? First div, or you can put a one div, whatever you guys want. Our you can put a one div. Yeah, just put a one div, as long as you guys remember the name, and as long as you guys point to this div. You have to point to this ID. You can put a class as well, but at the moment we concentrate on the IDs. So every div you guys want to, if you want to put a style, you have to put an ID everywhere, whichever. If you want to go to H1, you have to put an ID. If you want to change it, change the color or font color, if you guys want to do this. Otherwise, what happens that if you put an ID, this ID is going to apply to everything, whatever is in this div, from the first div to the end div. But if you want a different, say you want a H1, you have to put an ID of H1, you have to put an ID of H2. But if you don't, then the HTML is going to render this as like a one div. That's it. So it's up to you. You're the one in charge. You're the one who's got a canvas. You're the artist, and HTML and CSS is waiting for your styling. It says commands. All right. So what we do, if we put a ID, is we put a hash and we put a one div. So now we're referring to our one div. Okay, so now we're referring to our one div. So just remember, guys, to referring for the ID, you guys should put a hash. It's not like a Twitter hash, but it's just a hash. It means it's ID. But if you put a dot, it means it's class. We're gonna go in class on the next video, but at the moment you guys concentrate on the ID. So this is the ID. All right, so we save this and we save this. All right, so we go and check our nothing changed, because we are expecting something to go at the background. Yeah, why did not change? All right, the reason is because we did not link our index to this style sheet. So we go there and check. That's our style sitting in that's a style. We've got a style folder, and if you double click, we see my style sitting here. All right, so at the moment HTML doesn't know anything about this style sheet. So we go there, we close this second one, and we go there because we've got a ID one div to this style, because we've got a one div ID here. So we're gonna go and link this one. As you guys remember from our first video, we drew this picture of the guy with the head. So we must know this guy that we've got a header there, and we must link it. So how we do that? We say link. So what's the links? What's the relationship? We put a rel is equal to, says style sheet, says your relationship to this cascading style sheet is the style sheet. All right, so that's we saying to this HTML that link to our CSS file, and the HTML says, all right, what's my relationship? And they said your relationship is a style sheet to this style sheet. And it says what type is it? We put a type is equal to text / CSS. We say that's the type, and we put a href. And what's our href? Where is the reference? We say that's inside our folder. What is our folder? If you guys can remember, should remember your folder. You can put any folder name. So our folder name is style, and our file name is my style. So if we go there and connect these two, we put a style / my style dot CSS. And you guys don't forget that CSS. Once you guys finish, you always put this /. It means that's the end of this tag. You guys can do like this, or you guys can do, if you got one, you guys can do like this. Just remember, you guys can do like this. You guys can put it at the end, and see it's rendering this is the first, and this is ending here. So we linked our HTML to our style. All right, so we go there and refresh our browser. As you guys can see, it changed the color because now it's reading this CSS file. So if you go there and we remove all the styles, so we leave the first div and we remove this style from here, because now we have a CSS style folder. Okay, we remove this as well. We leave the ID because we need the ID. Alright, so we go there and we move this one here. Okay, as we just said that we leave the ID. Okay, so now our HTML page got no styling. As you guys can see here, all the things gone. But because we've got now a style sheet, we can do this. So we're gonna target every style so with our CSS file, because now we have linked, we have linked our HTML. One sec. So inside the head, just remember guys, you must put it inside the head. You can't put it inside the body because it's not gonna head. You must put the inside like a human head. If you guys say go to this address, the guy is gonna think inside his head, his or her head is, they're not gonna go inside their body or inside their tummy. They're gonna think inside their head where to go. That's the HTML exactly like a human. Just remember, like a human head. So you have to put it inside the head. So now HTML knows that I need to go and link to this style sheet. So just we repeat again that you guys should put an open tag link and close your tag here, and you put what's the rel is for relationship is style sheet, and if you've got a type is text/css, and our href, and we got our reference, hypertext reference. We put a style, my style.css, and you guys don't forget this .css at the end because it's very, very important. .html after extension .html .css. all right, because web development is very dynamic and is very very big. So you guys needs to know at the moment HTML and CSS, and later on we're gonna go and see that PHP is gonna be .php, but not at the moment, because at the moment we are looking at this style. So that's in future videos, but at the moment we're discussing this my style. All right, so cascading style sheet, just remember. All right, so we go there and we want to say we're going to target the first div. All right, what do you want to do with the first div? As you guys can see, the first div. So we've got a first div. All right, so we go there and put a first div. That's our first div. Open your curly braces. Just remember to open this, because it's gonna read from here all the way here. So that's your first you open the tag from here to this, target this ID. You're targeting this ID, the ID of one div, and the second one is here. This got a different ID, and you guys must make sure that you always put it different. If you can't put same ID, if you put the same ID, it's going to render the exactly same thing. It's not going to give you error like if you guys done a C++ or PHP or any other language, it normally gives you error. But in the case of HTML and CSS, they never give you error because it's just for styling. You're the artist. All right, so we go there and you can do whatever you want. You want to change the color, you can change the color. it says background. Yeah, you guys can put a green if you want. That works, but it's up to you. You guys want to do this way. So looks like there is some sort of problem here, because first you guys can see we did not it's got a T at the end, first div, and this one doesn't have, because we need to correct it. You have to be exactly pointing to the thing that it remembers. So now you see we changed the background of this paragraph. So this div has changed the background. So that's HTML and CSS.